Hey there. Welcome back to Scary Times. The clock just struck midnight, and there's something unsettling about tonight's atmosphere. I've got some terrifying tales that'll make you question every shadow in your room. If you enjoy getting scared, with us, hit that subscribe button and join our haunted family. Now turn off your lights, put on your headphones, and let Scary Times guide you through tonight's collection of spine-chilling stories. I never thought a simple game would completely change our lives. My name is Jay, and I was a senior at Zhongshan High School in Eastern Asia. What happened that autumn night still haunts me to this day, reminding me that some boundaries should never be crossed. But what's more terrifying is that even now, in the dead of night, I can still hear that eerie spinning sound, as if it's calling out to me. Zhongshan High School was an ancient institution with buildings over 50 years old. Our classroom was located in the darkest corner of the fourth floor, where it was perpetually dark and damp. Every afternoon, sunlight would filter through the dust-covered windows, casting strange shadows on the floor. Sometimes these shadows would twist unnaturally, as if they were alive, but whenever I looked closely, they'd return to normal. There was a story about the school building's construction, a tragic workplace accident that everyone knew but teachers rarely discussed. A worker named Mr. Zhang had fallen from the scaffolding during the rush to complete the building. The strangest part was that when they found his body, his face bore an unnatural smile, and his arms were frozen in an outstretched position, as if he had been trying to catch something. The teachers dismissed it as an urban legend, but no one, not even the bravest students, dared to stay alone in the classroom after dark. It all started on an unusually gloomy morning, with the sky covered in a thick blanket of gray clouds, and even the sunlight had an eerie yellowish tinge. My classmate Wei mysteriously called us to the back of the classroom and carefully pulled out something wrapped in red cloth from his backpack. "This belonged to my grandfather," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the distant sounds of students in the hallway. He used it to communicate with the spirit world and solve many problems. As he slowly unwrapped the yellowed red cloth, we saw a wooden plate about the size of a palm, slightly yellowed with age, with a black arrow in the center. The edges showed signs of wear, but what caught our attention were the dense scratches, covering its surface resembling mysterious symbols I couldn't understand. "This plate has a special history," Wei continued, his fingers tracing over the mysterious scratches. "My grandfather said he found it in an abandoned temple. The temple was supposedly deserted after a great fire 100 years ago, and all the monks—" He made a slicing gesture across his throat, the implication clear without words. Our group, Wei, Min, Ting, and myself, had always been fascinated by ghost stories. During lunch breaks, we'd gather to share various school supernatural legends. But this was our first encounter with an actual spiritual artifact. "Should we try it?" Wei suggested, his eyes gleaming with excitement. I noticed the plate seemed to quiver slightly when he spoke, though it might have been my imagination. Ting hesitated. "But I heard it's dangerous. My cousin's classmate tried something similar, and afterward—" Her voice trailed off. "What happened?" Min pressed, leaning forward. "She transferred schools," Ting whispered. "They say she kept seeing things she shouldn't have seen." The classroom suddenly fell silent. Even the playground noise outside seemed distant. A cold draft crept in from somewhere, making the class activity chart on the window flutter ominously. Min, however, seemed eager. "Come on, we're not going to ask anything serious. Maybe just about exam topics." He laughed, though his smile seemed forced. "Besides, what could possibly go wrong with so many people here?" I was hesitant too. Recently, I'd heard about someone from the neighboring class who went mad after playing with a spirit board, constantly claiming someone was following them until a spiritual master intervened. But peer pressure and my own curiosity got the better of me, and we decided to give it a try. Our first attempt was after school when most students had already left. The setting sun cast long shadows across the classroom, stretching like dark fingers across the floor. We meticulously cleaned a desk and borrowed a fresh sheet of paper, carefully writing out letters and numbers in a circle. While placing the paper, I noticed the plate was unnaturally cold, even in direct sunlight. "They say it's safer to play before sunset for the first time," Wei explained while arranging the paper, his hands trembling slightly, leaving faint sweat marks on the paper. We sat in a circle in the back corner, each extending an index finger to touch the wooden plate. "Spirit, spirit, please come forth," we chanted softly, our voices creating an eerie harmony in the empty classroom. At first, the plate lay motionless, but the air grew noticeably colder. Suddenly, the storage cabinet at the back made a soft noise, startling Ting, who nearly withdrew her finger. That's when the plate moved. Not just a simple wobble, but an eerily animated tremor, as if it had come alive. "It's really moving," Ting exclaimed, her voice a mixture of excitement and fear. We held our breath, watching the plate slowly glide across the paper, each movement accompanied by a faint scratching sound, like distant whispers. Our first session went surprisingly smoothly. We asked innocent questions about tomorrow's weather and upcoming quiz topics. The plate moved gently, as if cooperating with us. Each time it moved across the paper, it left faint marks, which persisted even when we changed to fresh sheets. Over the next few days, playing with the spirit plate became our after-school routine. We grew bolder, asking about relationships and other students' secrets. The spirit seemed eager to answer, providing increasingly detailed responses and even making predictions. The most unsettling part was how eerily accurate these predictions were. But I started noticing strange occurrences. After each session, the classroom temperature would drop unnaturally low, even on hot afternoons. Sometimes I'd catch glimpses of shadowy reflections in the windows, as if someone was watching us from behind. I began having strange dreams, featuring the endlessly spinning plate and a blurry face slowly approaching. As we continued our sessions, the supernatural events intensified. One afternoon, as we prepared to start, we discovered bizarre writing on the blackboard. These weren't ordinary chalk marks. They looked like they'd been carved into the surface, oozing thick black liquid that emitted a putrid stench. The characters were distorted like open wounds, each stroke seemingly pulsating as if breathing. "Stop playing." Min read the message with trembling voice. The moment he finished speaking, the writing on the board violently contorted, making a bone-chilling screech as the black liquid dripped down, forming an eerie pattern on the floor. But we couldn't stop. Each of us felt an inexplicable compulsion, a sick obsession with the spirit plate game. Despite knowing the dangers, we gathered day after day, waiting for that mysterious presence to manifest. That fateful day, we decided to ask a bolder question. "Aimbound, you tell us who you are," Wei asked shakily. The moment the words left his mouth, the classroom atmosphere turned heavy. Outside, the sky suddenly darkened, clouds gathering as if before a storm. The plate began spinning frantically, at a speed impossible for human hands. The classroom temperature plummeted. Windows slammed open and shut with tremendous force. Shadows on the walls twisted into grotesque shapes, like countless crawling hands. We heard deep murmurs from all directions, incomprehensible yet distinctly present. Suddenly, the plate stopped, pointing to a chilling answer. "Zhang." At that instant, the classroom lights exploded, showering glass everywhere. A foul wind swept through, scattering books and papers. In the back of the classroom, I clearly saw a figure materializing, maintaining an unnatural outstretched pose, with an unsettling smile. The figure was Mr. Zhang, the worker who died in an accident 50 years ago during the school's construction. Through her terror, Ting recognized him. "I know who he is," she stammered. "I saw the accident records while organizing old files in the library. He fell from the 5th floor scaffolding, but when they found his body, he had that strange smile. They say he fell trying to save a stray cat that had wandered onto the construction site." According to local stories, Mr. Zhang had been a devout Buddhist who cared for his elderly mother. He would visit the temple behind the mountain regularly, never missing his prayers on the 1st and 15th of each lunar month, days considered spiritually significant in many Asian cultures, no matter how busy he was. The wooden plate was supposedly given to him by an elderly monk at the temple as a protective charm. The monk had said it was a sacred artifact passed down through the temple for centuries. On the day of the accident, they found the plate clutched. In his hand, even the strongest workers couldn't pry his fingers loose. The classroom temperature dropped to winter-like levels, our breath visible in the air. The figure became increasingly clear. I could see his blue work uniform stained with mud and cement, the fabric visibly torn. His expression was a disturbing mix of agony and something else, his eyes filled with indescribable sorrow. Shouldn't have touched this. Not a toy. A hoarse voice echoed through the room, broken and distant, the air filled with the smell of damp earth, mixed with rusty metal and rotting wood. Wei tried to run but found himself paralyzed, as if bound to his chair by invisible ropes. We were all frozen in place by an unseen force, forced to watch as the figure approached, leaving wet footprints with each step. The air grew thick with a pungent mixture of wet cement, rust, and dust. Suddenly Min screamed, "The plate!" The wooden plate began emitting an eerie dark red glow, its scratches coming, alive, writhing into ancient Sanskrit symbols. A powerful energy burst from the plate, causing everything in the classroom to shake violently, even the windows rattling ominously. That's when I remembered what Wei had said. The plate was found in an abandoned temple. Could it be the same temple Mr. Jiang used to visit? In that moment of mortal danger, a thought flashed through my mind. Perhaps this wasn't just an ordinary protective charm. The figure moved closer, its footsteps leaving dark, wet marks that seemed to sink into the floor. Through chattering teeth, I managed to whisper a Buddhist mantra my grandmother had taught me. To our shock, the ghost paused, its twisted smile faltering slightly. "The temple," the spirit's voice echoed. "The plate must return." Each word brought waves of cold air that made the windows frost over. Suddenly, everything clicked. The plate wasn't meant to communicate with spirits. It was meant to contain them. The temple must have sealed dangerous spirits within it, and now a deafening crack split the air as the wooden plate began to splinter. Dark shapes started seeping from the cracks, writhing like smoke but moving with purpose. The ghost of Mr. Jiang lunged forward, not toward us, but toward the plate itself. "Must seal them," his voice strained with effort. Wei finally broke free from his paralysis and grabbed the plate. "The temple!" he shouted. "We need to take it back." But as we tried to move, the dark entities swirling from the plate formed a barrier around us. The classroom had become a battlefield between Mr. Jiang's spirit and these ancient evils. In desperation, I remembered the rest of my grandmother's teachings. "The 15th of the lunar month," I shouted. "That's when the barrier between worlds is thinnest. Mr. Jiang always went to pray then." Understanding flashed across Wei's face. Today was the 15th. As if responding to our realization, Mr. Jiang's spirit grew stronger, more defined. The unnatural smile transformed into a look of determination. With supernatural strength, he began forcing the dark entities back into the plate, the room filled with an otherworldly howling as they resisted. We ran from the school, plate in hand, toward the mountain temple. The sky had turned an impossible shade of purple, and the wind carried whispers in languages long forgotten. When we finally reached the abandoned temple, its crumbling walls still bore scorch marks from the fire a century ago. At the temple's entrance, Mr. Jiang's spirit appeared one final time. His expression was peaceful now, the twisted smile gone. He guided us to a sealed chamber beneath the main hall, where an empty altar stood. The moment Wei placed the plate, on it, ancient Sanskrit characters on the walls began to glow, and the plate's dark energy dissipated like smoke and wind. We never played with spirits again after that day. Sometimes, on the 15th of the lunar month, I visit the old temple. They say on quiet nights you can hear the soft sounds of prayer, and occasionally catch a glimpse of a figure in a blue work uniform, watching over the temple grounds with a gentle, natural smile. The plate remains sealed in the temple where it belongs. But even now, years later, I sometimes wake in the night, hearing that faint spinning sound. And when I do, I whisper a quick prayer of thanks to Mr. Jiang, the guardian spirit who saved us from forces we never should have disturbed. Remember this warning: not all games are meant to be played, and some doors, once opened, are nearly impossible to close. My name is Amin. I'm a junior at an old high school in Taipei, Taiwan. What happened that winter night still sends chills down my spine. If I hadn't stayed late to study that evening, I would never have encountered things that should remain unseen. Our school building is over 50 years old, and my classroom sits in the darkest corner of the 4th floor. The ceiling is yellowed and cracked, cobwebs fill every corner, and the walls leak whenever it rains. According to local history, this building used to be a military hospital during the Japanese occupation of Taiwan before being converted into a school. Outside our classroom stands a massive banyan tree, sacred in many Asian cultures, its roots having penetrated the walls, creating snake-like cracks across the building's facade. The building itself emanates an ancient, mysterious aura that fills students with a sense of dread. At night, when classroom lights shine through the windows, you can't help but wonder about the stories these walls could tell. Every mark and crack seems to whisper tales of past tragedies. That evening, I had permission from Mr. Jiang to stay late and study for tomorrow's math exam. Winter darkness falls early in Taipei around 5 o'clock, so I chose a seat near the hallway where the motion sensor lights could reach. The classroom had this heavy, musty smell, mixed with years of chalk dust that lingered even with the windows open. There's a legend about this classroom that seniors often share with new students. 20 years ago, during winter, a female student was bullied and locked inside a storage locker overnight. When the cleaning staff found her the next morning, she was already dead. The blackboard was covered with nail marks spelling out, "Give me back my life." Though the school replaced the locker, students say they can still hear crying from inside during winter nights. This legend is well known throughout the school. While many students claim not to believe it, there's always that lingering fear. During winter, especially in the dead of night, everyone can't help but recall the tale. Some students even catch themselves stealing glances at the storage lockers during study hall, afraid they might see something they shouldn't. At 7:47 p.m., while I was solving a trigonometry problem, I noticed the streetlights outside beginning to flicker. Looking up, I saw the banyan tree's branches thrashing wildly in the cold wind, casting shadows on the floor that looked like countless grasping hands. More disturbing was the sharp antiseptic smell suddenly filling the room, like formaldehyde used in hospitals, making me wrinkle my nose in disgust. That's when I heard it. Someone singing. It was an old-school anthem, but the words were broken and distant as if coming from underwater. The motion sensor lights in the hallway began to flash erratically, projecting bizarre shadows on the walls. I tried to stand up to close the windows but found myself frozen in place, unable to move. My heart started racing as the old legend flooded back into my mind. Words began appearing on the blackboard, one character at a time, scratched out in crooked, jagged strokes. Give me back my innocence. I wanted to run, but somehow, the classroom door had sealed shut. The storage lockers at the back began to vibrate, accompanied by intermittent sobbing. What terrified me most was the dark liquid seeping through the locker's seams, glistening eerily in the moonlight. The black liquid seeped through the locker's cracks, pooling on the floor. A metallic smell filled the air. It was blood. More disturbingly, the blood began spreading across the floor, forming what appeared to be a human silhouette. "Do you want to know the truth?" A hoarse female voice whispered in my ear. I turned sharply and saw a girl in an old-style uniform standing by the blackboard. Her face was deathly pale, wet hair plastered to her face, with visible bruising around her neck. Most terrifying were her eyes, completely black like bottomless pits that seemed to pull me in. I didn't mean to disturb you," I stammered, trembling with fear. "No, you came at the perfect time." She smiled eerily. "Because your father was one of those who tormented me." The words hit me like a thunderbolt. My father had graduated from this school, but he'd never mentioned anything about this. The ghost drifted toward me, her cold presence paralyzing me. The temperature in the classroom plummeted, everything around became hazy. "That night, they locked me in that locker," she continued, her voice distorted with unbearable sorrow. "I cried for help, but no one came. By midnight, I couldn't breathe. When I woke up, I was like this. The temperature dropped further. I could see my breath crystallizing in the air. Outside, the banyan tree thrashed violently, its branches beating against the windows. More disturbing were the faces that began appearing in its trunk, countless twisted expressions seemingly crying out in anguish. "Not just me," the ghost pointed outside. "See them? The souls tortured in the military hospital, other students who died from bullying. We've all been waiting for this moment." Her words cut deep, shattering my image of my father, my hero. Turned villain. I couldn't reconcile this dark past with the man I knew. Suddenly, the floor began to shake. A putrid smell rose from the cracks, emanating from the old military hospital basement. I heard synchronized footsteps in the hallway, accompanied by a chorus of weeping, as if all the tortured souls were calling out. "Your father and the others kept this secret for 20 years. The ghost's form began to distort. "Tonight I'll show you what really happened." The classroom space began to warp, walls rippling like water. I felt myself being pulled into a vortex as everything blurred. When my vision cleared, I found myself 20 years in the past, on that fateful winter night. In the last row of the classroom, I saw my father as a young man, along with other students, forcing a girl into the storage locker. Her screams echoed in my ears, tearing at my heart. The scene was horrifying. Young faces I recognized as current school board members' families stood watching coldly as the girl desperately pounded on the locker door. I tried to scream, to stop them, but no sound came out. Most shocking was recognizing some of the bullies' surnames. They belonged to current school board member families. "Do you see now?" the ghost's voice whispered. "They didn't just bully me, they conspired to cover it up. Your father became a teacher, and their children now attend this school." Reality warped again, returning us to the present classroom. The banyan tree's roots had broken through the floor, writhing like snakes. Faces emerged from the roots. Soldiers, students, all victims of this building's dark history. "Do you know why this banyan tree is special?" She pointed outside. "Its roots reach deep into the old morgue, absorbing the anguish of countless souls. Every bullied student who died here feeds its growth." Suddenly, footsteps echoed from the hallway, the security guard making rounds. The ghost's expression turned fierce as the lights flickered wildly. The roots began wrapping around my ankles, warning me not to flee. "Wait!" I struggled to speak. "I can help expose the truth. Make everyone know what happened." The ghost paused, studying me. "Are you willing to face the consequences?" she asked. "Even if it means exposing your father's crimes?" Taking a deep breath, I nodded. She handed me a yellowed notebook filled with dates and names, her diary documenting every instance of bullying. "Take this," she said. "But remember, the spirits won't let them off easily." The next day, I turned the diary over to the police and media. The case caused a social uproar in Taipei, and those involved finally faced justice. My father was suspended, pending investigation, but at least he finally confessed to his conscience. Yet the strange occurrences haven't ended. Whenever I pass the old banyan tree, I still hear faint crying. On cold winter nights, people still see a girl in an old uniform standing at the fourth-floor window, silently watching over the school. The truth about my father haunts me. His smiling face masks a hidden past that I can never forget. Every time I recall his eyes, I can't suppress my fear and anger, and as I continued investigating my father's past and seeking out his other victims, I carried a heavy burden. My classmates' strange looks suggested they wondered what else I might know. One day after school, I met a former senior who had been the dead girl's classmate. She revealed how the school had covered up the death, her voice full of regret and remembrance. "We were all so young then. No one dared speak up," she said, "but I still remember her cries, even today." Through my investigation, I discovered more secrets. The former bullies had built successful lives but lived in the shadow of their past. Their children now attended the same school, as if nothing had changed. Standing under the banyan tree one day, I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of its dark history. The roots seemed to whisper stories of untold suffering. I began sharing these, stories online, exposing the school's dark history. As my articles spread, society demanded accountability. The school established an investigation committee, forcing past bullies to face their actions. My father finally publicly apologized to all victims, yet the spirits remain. The crying continues near the banyan tree, waiting for final justice. Though the truth is out, some wounds never heal. Years later, I've learned to face my past and seek reconciliation. Despite my father's mistakes, I hope he can change. I want future students to have a safe environment, free from bullying's shadow. Standing under the banyan tree now, watching its leaves sway in the evening breeze, I pray silently for peace, both for the living and the dead who remain bound to this place. In Taiwan, we believe that spirits can find peace when justice is served and their stories are told. I hope that by sharing this truth, I've helped her find that peace. But sometimes, on particularly cold winter nights, I still hear singing from the fourth floor when no one should be there. And the banyan tree's roots continue to spread, as if reaching for something, or someone, that remains hidden beneath the school's foundations.